Well, good morning, everyone. I'm about to head out on another adventure. I'm going to Galveston Island for the Lone Star Rally. It's one of the largest rallies in the country, especially to be a three-day rally. I always enjoy going. Of course, my time at the rally will be cut a little short. I'm a pastor, so I'm preaching a funeral in the morning, and family visitation is this evening, so I'll be leaving early afternoon to come back. And so because of that, I'm leaving earlier than some of my friends are. Some of my friends are waiting a little bit later this morning to head that way. I'm hoping to run into them when we get to Galveston Island, but we'll see. It's a big island and a big rally, so I may or may not be able to cross paths with my friends. I hope to be able to do that, but it's a great rally. Be sure and comment if you've ever been or would ever like to go. Galveston Island is a unique city in the state of Texas. Wonderful place to do a rally. They have vendors on the seawall. They have vendors downtown on the Strand. Across, not far walking distance from the Strand, is a harbor side where the cruise ships dock. They have vendors over there as well, and of course music and all the things that go along with a rally. So I know I'm gonna have a great time today, and I'll take you along the journey with me. Thank you for tuning into the channel. Be sure and like, subscribe, and comment about your thoughts about the Lone Star Rally or some of the other major rallies that you may have attended. Well, okay, Facebook family, I've made it as far as High Island, Texas, down here on the Gulf Coast. So I'm a whopping 38 miles by the time we get down to the beach down there. Let's say 39 miles from the Texas Gulf Coast from where I live. It took me 41 minutes to get to the coast. High Island is a unique little town, very small little town down here on the eastern end of the Bolivar Peninsula. High Island is built on top of a salt dome, so I think the highest elevation is 32 feet above sea level. I think it's the highest point from Mexico all the way to Florida, which is beneficial when you have hurricanes. I was the pastor down here in, I think it was 2008, when Hurricane Ike hit with a 20-foot storm surge. So that last 12 feet of High Island was sticking out of the water. This is actually a peninsula, but for several days High Island was literally an island. I don't know if you can see the Gulf Coast there. Got the little concrete barricade. So High Island, when we look back toward High Island there, High Island was literally an island for several days. The water went 14 miles inland. So where I'm riding right here on the road here on the edge of the coast was a 20-foot storm surge. So overnight the Bolivar Peninsula went from over 6,000 homes to about 1,400. And of course it's made a great comeback since the hurricane. And when we get down a little farther, you'll see that the houses are elevated, obviously for the storm surge. There's the Gulf Coast. So the Bolivar Peninsula is about 30 miles long. I've got cars going around me here. Maybe I'm not doing the speed limit. Bolivar Peninsula is about 30 miles long. I forgot, widest point, I don't know, maybe 3 miles wide. It's a really a unique place to live. Well, my visor down may cause more wind noise than with it up. So it is a really unique place to live. I lived down here for 7 years, have very fond memories of the Bolivar Peninsula. So we'll travel the full 30 miles of the Bolivar Peninsula before we make our way on over to Galveston Island for the rally. I don't know if you can tell from the camera, my windshield is filthy. I didn't realize it was so dirty. So I'm thankful though it's an electric windshield. I can raise it up, I can lower it down. I usually keep it set where I'm looking right over it, so the camera may be shining to look through it. If it is, you can tell it is filthy. So I think we're supposed to have some bad weather later today, so that'll affect the rally some. Hopefully by sometime in the morning it will have moved out. Yeah, there's the water just right there, literally on the edge of the road. So even a tropical storm, you get water and debris and driftwood up here on the road. We get a little farther down, you'll see the elevated homes You know, it's fairly expensive to buy a beach home down here, but what I understand it's way cheaper than the East Coast or the West Coast. Now, sometimes the water here on this part of the Gulf is a pretty blue. Sometimes it's a dirty brown. Some of my friends say, oh, the water's never blue, it's always the dirty brown, but that's not true. Sometimes it is a very pretty blue. We'll see what the water looks like a little later this morning. I don't make it to the rally every year. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a funeral tomorrow which will interfere with tomorrow. I don't know if I'll try to come back tomorrow afternoon or not. Some years I do not make it for reasons like that, but most years I'll probably attend maybe 3 years in a row and then miss a year, and then I may attend, you know, 3 more in a row before I miss another year. I like to come on both Friday and Saturday, and only living 30-something miles from the Gulf Coast, I just drive back and forth. I have some friends that will either rent a place there on Galveston Island and stay the weekend, or they'll rent a place here on the Bolivar Peninsula. A lot of people put their beach homes in a rental pool. They reserve so many weeks or months of the year to enjoy their beach home themselves, and the rest of the time it's in the rental pool being managed by a rental management company is the way most of them do it. There's an elevated house there right on the water, which would be ideal if you were going to have a beach home to actually literally be on the beach, where you could walk down your steps and walk out onto the beach. Our beaches are unique here on the Bolivar Peninsula. You can drive on the beach, you can camp on the beach. It's and I know a lot of the world, a lot of the United States, that's not allowed, but that's one thing that really makes it unique. On the right hand side there are some more elevated homes. Often they're painted in crazy pastel colors. These aren't quite as radical as some you see. They remind me of Easter egg colors. Looks like they built some more new houses here on the left. I remember when there weren't any homes there on the left side of this part of the beach. So the Bolivar Peninsula actually has several little communities. On the east end is High Island, Texas. This little portion is called Gilcrest. Then you get a little farther down, there is Crystal Beach, and then you get down to the west end of the peninsula is the little town of Port Bolivar. Part of the peninsula is the High Island School District. When I lived down here, that's where my kids went to school. And then the rest of the peninsula is part of the Galveston School District. Unique place to live. It's a unique place to vacation. Some people just come down for the day, will come on a weekend and, you know, do Saturday, enjoy the beach. Most of the businesses are actually in the community of Crystal Beach, which, I don't know, it's a 30-mile long peninsula. From the east end, it's about 20 miles to Crystal Beach. I just think it's cool, the fact that you can drive most of the Bolivar Peninsula and look to the left and see the Texas Gulf Coast. Really a unique place. Well, it's getting brighter, it's less overcast than it was when I left the house, and it was still somewhat dark. They used to call this Rollover Pass. There was a cut through here with water going from both sides, and they filled it in to help with the erosion of the beach. So if you're a coastal, beachy kind of person, you know, I know people come to Galveston Island. My family always loved Galveston Island. We always came often when I was a kid. Even when we lived, you know, 200 miles north of here, we would come to Galveston. But the Bolivar Peninsula is often overlooked. You know, the great thing about the Bolivar Peninsula is just not quite as crowded. I mean, it's crazy in the summer. You know, it'd be very quiet in the winter, very crazy in the summer here on the Bolivar Peninsula. Same thing with Galveston Island, but that's just the nature of living, you know, living on the Texas Gulf Coast. But get a chance, come check it out. And I certainly encourage you, if you've never been to the Lone Star Rally, you need to come. If you've already been, comment down below. I've made it to the west end of the Bolivar Peninsula. And by the way, I have a confession to make. I believe in fairies. Fairies are not just mythical creatures. Fairies are real. They are real. They have names. I can prove that fairies are real. Not sure which line I'm supposed to be in here. Fairies are real. Let me explain. This rally is on Galveston Island. As the name suggests, Galveston is an island. So there are 3 ways to get to Galveston Island. From the, let's see which way it's going to tell me to go. Straight here. Right. So there's a long causeway bridge on the north side of the island. On the west end of the island, there is a short toll bridge. On the east end of the island, the way we get back and forth is by ferry. Yes, ferries are real. I'll be riding a ferry from the end of the Bolivar Peninsula over to Galveston Island. So if anyone ever suggests that ferries are not real, I assure you they are. Okay, so much for my corny humor, but it's fun to tell that story. Well, I made it to Galveston Island by way of the ferry. I like to go to the seawall first. We're on the seawall. There's the Texas Gulf Coast. It's still very early on Friday, so there'll be way more bikes here later in the day, or even more tomorrow on Saturday. But they have numerous vendors here on the seawall. As I mentioned earlier, more vendors downtown, more vendors over on harbor side. I know my buddies will probably be here a little later this morning. Maybe I can cross paths with them before the morning's over. I'm going to kind of give you a little walkthrough down here of the many vendors. There goes another Indian. I was going to take notice of all the Indians I see today. There's one over there I'm going to go over and take a picture of. But the Galveston rally is a pretty fun event. There's my Indian Roadmaster sporting the white walls. Over here we have an Indian Challenger. If you want a power cruiser touring bike, that right there is a fast motorcycle right out of the crate. Some of the vendors over on the harbor side. Of course, Chevrolet always sets up. Vendors. I've already walked down the Strand. Tons of vendors off all the side streets. There's bikes in the parking lot across the street. It's still early on Friday. This place will be hopping tomorrow. As I rode down here by myself, I've already seen several people I know. If there's another Indian motorcycle over here, I got to get my camera out and take a picture. I've been taking a picture of all the Indians, but you go to these events, we're seeing more and more Indians. Harley may always be king, but Indian is certainly chiseled away a little bit at their market share. Vendors as far as you can see. How are you? Anything, everything motorcycle related, and then some. All the side streets off of the Strand, which is the historic street here in downtown Galveston, have more vendors. Food vendors, motorcycle vendors. I've already had a a meat pie that was really good. This place by tomorrow will be completely full of bikes. It'll be hopping. This time tomorrow, see if I can get it here in the street. There are already people, bikes parking on both sides of the street. Motorcycles everywhere. Honda Shadow, Harleys, Harleys, Harleys. Lots of Harleys. There's a Kawasaki. Harleys everywhere. And a few Indians sprinkled here and there. If I had time, I'd hang out all day today, but unfortunately, I've got to head back here in just a little bit. Something temporary. I'll try to come back tomorrow or not. There's a shot of the Strand. Again, it'll be much busier tomorrow. Saturday's the big day. But I've had a good time so far, and we'll see if I have time to come back tomorrow afternoon. Remember, if you like to ride as much as you can, because one day we'll all be too old to ride. There's a dolphin off in the distance. I don't know if you can see him or not. He just jumped out of the water. Probably catch him again, but there he is. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera. The camera's picking it up that far away. That's Galveston Island there in the background. See if we see any more dolphins. The water is nice and pretty today. We're still the end of Galveston Island, and we're going back over to the Bolivar Peninsula. You may not can see it off in the distance, but there's the Bolivar Lighthouse. I failed to mention on my video, and I forgot to pull my camera out, I ran into several people that I knew from Southeast Texas over at the Valley. It's crazy. You can go here by yourself with hundreds of thousands of people at the Valley and still run into people you know. And some of the folks in my group I know were there. I didn't actually run into them. I could have called them on the phone and found them, but I knew I'd have to head back early anyway, so I didn't want them to waste any time coming and looking for me. And by the time, or me looking for them, either one, by the time we found each other, you know, it was time for me to leave. I think there's another dolphin over there close to that buoy. I don't know if you see the buoy floating in the water. Most of the time on the ferry ride from Galveston, there's two right there, maybe a baby. Almost every time I take the ferry ride, I see dolphins. Not every time, but almost every time. Yep, there's two right there together. I mentioned we came down through High Island to get here on the Bolivar Peninsula. There's a bird sanctuary in High Island that is full of alligators. They have either a small lake or a big pond, whichever way you want to look at it. I've counted as many as 30 alligators at a time there in High Island. It's kind of crazy, you know, living somewhere, well, at least when I used to live there, you know, to see wild alligators crossing the road. So that's another thing we deal with in Southeast Texas. Wild alligators, wild hogs. There's 2 more dolphins right there together. Now I love this ferry ride if I'm coming over here for pleasure. There's the dolphins. When I lived down here, if I had to come to Galveston for business, register the car, things like that, or take the kids to the doctor, the ferry ride was not as much fun. But for pleasure, I mean, something like this, to come over to the rally, it's definitely fun. There's a pelican going across there. I can see it there in the sky. I have a seagull here on the back of the ferry. They do say if you're going to feed the seagulls, to do it on the back of the ferry. And I have learned they will poop on you. Yes, they will. There's quite a few right there. Kind of reminds me of the Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Birds. I didn't realize till I rewatched it how many of the birds that were attacking were actually seagulls. I thought they were big crows or something. Oh, there's the pelican floating along there in the water. Again, I had a great time, saw a lot of friends, saw a lot of beautiful motorcycles. And just had a really good time. Again, I don't know if I'll come back tomorrow or not. I don't think the weather is going to be very good tonight in the morning. If I go back, I wouldn't be able to go back till tomorrow afternoon, and by then, there's more dolphins out there. You can see cargo ships off in the background. I see a Coast Guard ship getting a little closer over there to the Bolivar Lighthouse. And we are on the ferry. I told you they have names. This is the Gilchrist ferry. This is one of the older ferries. The newer ones, you can go upstairs and sit in the air conditioning. I don't think this one is air conditioned unless they remodel it. But if you ever get a chance, come to the Lone Star Rally. It's a really nice rally. I mean, it's usually early November, but you know, we've had very pleasant weather this time of year. Sometimes it can be bitterly cold, but today it's very nice. Temperature is fantastic. So be sure and like and subscribe and comment if you've been to the Lone Star Rally, or if you've been to some other rallies that you really enjoy. All right, thank you for tuning in. I'll have more videos for you in the near future. This time I'm feeding the birds on the back of the boat. Here's some kids feeding the birds. They're going after that bread. I've seen them catch it right out of the air before. Oh, there's a big tanker ship. I remember when I first moved to Southeast Texas, that's just amazing, you know, to see big massive ships and stuff. I'm from the piney woods of East Texas, so it's kind of different seeing this kind of stuff. Still see Galveston off at the distance, more seagulls, and the ferry.